The afternoon sun pressed gently against the curtains, turning the walls of my uncle's house into a canvas of shifting gold. His home had always carried an air of steadiness, the kind of place where time seemed reluctant to hurry. For as long as I could remember, my uncle had been the pillar of our family, quiet, reliable, never one to indulge in unnecessary drama. At that moment, he was doing what he always did after lunch, sleeping peacefully in his room, the steady rhythm of his breathing a sign of the calm he carried into every corner of his life. I had come over for a short visit, nothing unusual. He enjoyed company but never demanded it. His warmth was subtle, found in the way he asked about my day or in the way he insisted I never leave without sharing a meal. That afternoon, I wandered through the hallway, intending to step outside for some air. Yet something about the silence felt different, heavier, sharper. It wasn't just quiet, it was expectant, as though the house itself was holding its breath. I paused near the living room. A faint creak of movement drifted down the hall, a sound too deliberate to be dismissed as the house settling. My first instinct was to ignore it. Old homes always had their quirks, and I had no desire to invent problems where none existed. But curiosity, subtle and unwelcome, began to tug at me. Why did it sound as though someone else was here? My uncle's room door remained closed, and I could almost picture him inside, unaware, vulnerable in his slumber. That image, so trusting, only sharpened the unease growing inside me. He trusted his home to be safe. He trusted the people around him to be loyal. I wondered if that trust was about to be tested in ways neither of us could imagine. I told myself to keep walking, to step outside, and leave whatever was unseen. Yet my feet lingered, unwilling to obey reason. I turned back into the hallway and let my eyes adjust to the dim light. Another sound followed, a muffled thump, too soft for alarm, too out of place for comfort. My pulse quickened. I thought of how often my uncle had spoken of family as his anchor. He had no enemies, no bitterness, only quiet dedication. And here I was, standing in his house, feeling like a trespasser to some hidden truth. Was it paranoia? Or was there something in the air that demanded to be noticed? I stepped closer, the floor groaning beneath my weight. My hand hovered near a half-closed door, my breath caught between hesitation and resolve. Behind me, my uncle slept, unaware of my growing dread. Ahead of me, the unknown waited, wrapped in whispers and silence. And in that moment, standing between loyalty and discovery, I realized, once I looked inside, nothing would remain the same. The door before me seemed ordinary, yet it held a weight that pressed against my chest. I nudged it open just enough for a sliver of light to slip through. My heart thundered in my ears, louder than the creak of the hinge, louder than the steady rhythm of my uncle's sleep behind me. What I saw in that narrow view froze me where I stood. At first, it was only shapes, shadows bending together in a rhythm that spoke of intimacy. The soft murmur of voices carried through the stillness, hushed but unmistakable. My breath caught, my eyes adjusted, and the truth came into focus. A betrayal unfolding not 10 steps away from where my uncle lay peacefully. It was her, my uncle's wife, the woman who always smiled at family gatherings, who moved through the house with practiced grace. She was not alone. A man, faceless in the dim light, leaned close, his presence unmistakable, his hands tracing gestures that did not belong to friendship. Their bodies spoke louder than words ever could. A wave of disbelief surged through me, sharp enough to sting. I blinked, hoping I had misunderstood, that my mind had built illusions out of shadows. But no illusion could explain the whispered laughter, the hurried touch, the urgency of people who knew they were trespassing against trust. I felt rooted to the spot, torn between stepping away and demanding an explanation. My throat tightened, but no sound escaped. My uncle's voice echoed in my mind, his familiar phrases about loyalty, his simple gratitude for family. How could she, of all people, betray the very foundation he had built? The room itself seemed to conspire against me. The dim light cloaked their faces, but the truth needed no details. I saw enough. My pulse raced, My palms grew damp, and a cold realization settled over me. I was now the keeper of a secret that had the power to destroy him. Suddenly, a chair leg scraped the floor, and my stomach lurched. Had they heard me? I stepped back quickly, pressing myself into the shadowed hallway, barely daring to breathe. The laughter softened, then faded into silence. I prayed they wouldn't come to the door. My mind darted through possibilities. If caught, what excuse could I offer? Wandering aimlessly? Searching for water? None of them would hide the truth etched in my expression. For a moment, I thought I would be discovered. The doorknob rattled faintly, then stilled. A whisper followed, sharp and urgent, before footsteps retreated deeper into the room. Only then did I allow myself to exhale, a shaky sound that betrayed my panic. I turned back toward my uncle's room. He remained asleep, cocooned in peace, utterly unaware that the world he trusted was unraveling just down the hall. I lingered outside his door, my mind racing, my heart heavy with a knowledge I could never unsee. And as I stood there, paralyzed between silence and revelation, one truth pierced me deeper than any other. The betrayal had already begun, and my discovery was only the beginning. I slipped back into the hallway, every step deliberate, as though the floor itself might betray me. My uncle's door was just a few paces away, and when I reached it, the sight inside nearly broke me. He lay there in the dim glow of the afternoon, his chest rising and falling in unshaken rhythm, his brow uncreased, his trust still whole. The weight of what I had seen pressed down so hard, I thought my knees might give way. How could I tell him? The man who had built his life on honesty, who never once raised his voice in anger, who treated kindness as a duty rather than an option. How could I shatter his peace with words he never asked to hear? I lingered in the doorway, torn between two paths. One demanded truth, to shake him awake, to deliver the reality in its raw, merciless form. The other demanded silence, to carry the burden alone, to let him live in ignorance, at least for a while longer. Each choice was heavy, and neither offered solace. I closed the door quietly and sank onto a chair by the window. My thoughts spiraled, pulling me deeper into a web of consequences. If I told him, would he believe me? Or would he think I had misunderstood? Worse, would the truth crush him, leaving scars no time could heal? And if I stayed silent, would I not be complicit in her betrayal, preserving a lie while his loyalty remained unshaken? A sound jolted me, the faint creak of the floorboards outside. My pulse spiked. I stiffened, listening. The hallway held its breath, and then a shadow passed along the doorframe. My uncle's wife. My throat tightened. For an instant, I thought she would enter, that her eyes would meet mine and know that I had seen everything. Instead, the shadow faded, and her footsteps moved away. I released a shaky breath, but the encounter only deepened my fear. If she discovered my knowledge, she would try to silence it, to twist it, perhaps even to turn suspicion against me. The danger was no longer just emotional, it was personal. I rose and paced the room, each step echoing the turmoil inside me. My uncle stirred faintly in his sleep, his lips parting as if he might speak. I froze, wondering if his dreams sensed the storm gathering outside his door. The image of his betrayal replayed behind my eyes, sharp as glass, impossible to ignore. Every option I weighed carried the same conclusion. Whatever path I chose, life in this house would never be the same. And yet, for all my dread, one thought rooted itself firmly in my mind. Secrets fester, and silence, no matter how protective, can become a cruelty of its own. I stood there, trembling, realizing that my choice was not about if I would act, but when the evening light crept slowly into the house, painting the walls in muted shades of orange and gray. Hours had passed, though they felt like minutes, my thoughts tangled in endless circles. My uncle still rested quietly in his room, untouched by the storm that raged only a few steps away. I envied his peace, knowing it would vanish the moment I spoke. I sat at the edge of his bed, my fingers clenched together so tightly they ached. The words hovered on my lips, unformed but urgent. Tell him. the command repeated in my mind like a drumbeat. Yet, just as loud, another voice whispered, "Protect him. Don't destroy what he doesn't need to know." I rose and moved toward the window, trying to steady my breathing. Outside, the neighborhood looked unchanged. Children playing, neighbors laughing, the ordinary rhythm of life carrying on. But inside this house, a fracture had formed, invisible yet powerful enough to split everything apart. I had seen too much to pretend otherwise. The sound of footsteps approached. I stiffened. His wife entered, carrying herself with the same composure she always wore, her face calm, her smile practiced. For a fleeting moment, I wondered if she sensed the shift in me, if she could see in my eyes that I now held her secret. Our gazes met, and the silence between us burned. She lingered at the doorway, offering a polite word about dinner, her tone smooth, almost rehearsed. Then she left, her heels clicking against the floor, fading down the hall. My chest tightened. The choice lay before me, sharper than ever. To reveal her betrayal meant tearing my uncle's world apart, condemning him to heartbreak he did not deserve. To stay silent meant carrying the weight myself, knowing I was shielding him but also allowing the deception to thrive. I returned to his bedside. His eyes fluttered open, gentle and unaware. He smiled faintly, murmuring my name with the warmth of someone who trusted without question. In that moment, the words died in my throat. I couldn't do it, not tonight. Not when his smile still held peace. Instead, I forced a smile of my own, weak but convincing, and asked how he had slept. He answered simply, grateful for my presence, never suspecting the truth that stood between us. When he drifted back into rest, I remained awake, haunted by what I carried. The secret pressed into me like a weight I could never set down. Perhaps one day I would tell him. Perhaps the truth would force its way out on its own. But for now, silence was my choice, a fragile shield against a storm that would one day break. As I left his room, closing the door softly behind me, a single thought followed me like a shadow. Trust, once broken, can never be mended the same way. And I, unwilling witness to betrayal, had become both its guardian and its prisoner.